and welcome to TechnAct. In this space, we will hold conversations with different people doing research or activism in relation to social movements, gender, sexualities, and digital technologies. My name is Nadia.
And my name is Onur.
This is our launching episode, yay!
And you may actually ask, what is TechnAct? Well, that is why we are here today. So with us today, we are joined by three co-researchers of TechnAct. And their names are Lisen Selander, Liinason, and Lena Martinsson. So today we will have a conversation with them about what actually TechnAct is.
So welcome everyone. Let's get our listeners to know about us, starting maybe with you folks. Lena, would you like to start?
Yeah, you mean I should just say something about myself?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
Yes, I am working here at the Department for Gender Studies, and I am professor in gender studies as well. So it's part of the TechnAct project.
Mm-hmm. And Mia?
Yeah, like Lena, I work here also in the University of Gothenburg, part of the research team of TechnAct, which I am really happy to be. And I am a professor of gender studies and also interested in studying transnational feminist and queer movements, which I do in a separate research project at the side of TechnAct.
Thank you so much. And Lisa?
Yeah, so my name is Lisen and I am an associate professor at the IT faculty here at the University of Gothenburg. I do research on digital transformation, digital activism and social media.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So maybe we should also introduce ourselves as the host, but also as the part of this podcast. And yes, you want to start?
Sure. My name is Nadia Ruiz. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Gothenburg. My research interests are on the entanglements of digital technologies and societal aspects like social movements, gender and sexualities, and my research project is focused on the video game industry.
Thank you. And my name is Onur and I am also a PhD candidate at the University of Gothenburg in gender studies. And my research interests are in politics of gender and sexualities, social change, politics of space and digital communication. And in TechnAct project, my current project is actually about LGBTQ rights activism in Turkey at digital spaces, and I am exploring now translocal and transnational solidarities formed at these spaces. So now actually we would like to get back to you and get to know you better and our audience to know you better. So I want to ask you, how did you become a researcher and what makes you so passionate about your research?
Are you passionate?
Yes. Yes, I think I am passionate. And I also, when I started to at the university 400 years ago, it was also, I became soon very passionate about it, about the knowledge that made you see the world in new ways. That is, I think, just to also to be part of creating knowledge that learn you or make it possible for you to question common sense and see it in new ways. That was, yes, it is passionate, I think, and it's why I also became a scholar or a researcher. To be part of this, to create knowledge is so fantastic in that sense. Yeah.
I actually, I think I started as a researcher more like by a coincidence, actually. I really didn't think of staying in the academy. I worked as a journalist, as a freelance cultural critic, writer, and I liked it a lot, but I felt like I was always very interested in questions of feminism, justice, gender, and I felt the need to know more about it. So I started to study gender studies in the University of Gothenburg. And then I thought maybe I would also become a PhD student in the field because it would give me more authority, I felt. So so I started as a PhD student, and I was always determined to go back to journalism. But then something happened, transformation took place, and I think for me then the passion came. I guess that I just saw the fascination with knowledge production, which was about some kind of openness to the world and always learning new things, which is still the core of my passion. It is very anti-essentialist and in a way undeterministic, my attitude to knowledge production. So I enjoy it a lot.
I think also I can definitely say that it was also pretty much a coincidence for me that I ended up at the university. And even after wrapping up my PhD, I said I would never stay at the university. I just wanted to leave. And I ended up working as a management consultant for like 3 weeks. And then I went back, knocking on the door to the university, said, please take me back. And, But sometimes I think about it, like when I try to explain to people why I do this, I really think that one of the best things with this job is that I get paid for learning new things. Like I get paid for reading and writing, and I think that's just absolutely wonderful. Yeah. So passion, yeah, for sure.
In this case, we can say maybe coincidences are vital in life to move us to the future in many ways. And before actually moving to the project, I would like to again ask you, and very briefly, what is your current research about? And we can maybe
start with someone else than me.
Yeah. Okay, I can start. Well, I have been quite occupied the last 5-6 years doing research on social movement organizations. So I've been studying Amnesty International and their work in developing what we refer to as digital action repertoires, so new ways of engaging a digital crowd. And I still find that really, really fascinating, and that's, I would say, where my current research still sort of remains within that realm. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, at the moment my research is about transnational feminist and queer movements, and I find this topic interesting also for TechnAct project, and I guess that is also the background to developing the idea of TechnAct, because we could see that those transnational exchanges and collaborations have very much to do with digital technologies in different ways. But background to why I was interested in studying transnational exchanges in feminist and queer movements is that I was always interested in the relationship between resistance and power in justice-based struggles, and I think that is an interesting area to explore further. When it comes to the TechnAct project and the combinations of my research interests, I think that it is coming from it is developed from a critique of regular knowledge production, or could say traditional or mainstream knowledge production, which is much about categorizing and clarifying abstract reasoning to divide the world into different areas, which easily becomes very detached from the real world. As the frictions of the real world, or the mixtures of the real world, so to say. And this is also related to the disciplinary borders that exists. So for me, my interest of studying those cross-border or cross-boundary exchanges come very much from an idea of knowledge production, or a critique of knowledge production as this disciplinary activity, but also from an interest in seeing exchanges between people across borders. And I think TechnAct is a wonderful place to explore these questions through. So this is my current research.
Exactly, and we also hope that actually this very podcast will reach that aim by crossing the borders and reaching the audience through these digital spaces. And what about you, Lena?
Yes, I have also studied social movements, especially feminist and queer movements, for some years, 10 years actually. I think it is now. And also tried also to find ways of doing it in a transnational world as we are living in, and following different movements, ideas and discourses across borders, but also how they of course do different things in different contexts, in different national or local contexts, but also to try to see this transnationality as a space of its own. And that is also connected to what Mia said, with this interest for border crossing and things like that. So that is, and while I have been following different movements in this way, I have also, of course, been very, very aware of the digitalization that is going on and the impact it has. So that was why I thought it was a wonderful idea to be part of this TechnAct project, of course, because it is important in order to understand social movements today. They're always sort of transnational. And but also in this project, I have been very interested in, before and now, on transformations of sexuality and genders, of norms of sexualities and genders, of transforming different structures and the role the social movements have in it. And while I have before focused on feminists and women rights movements and queer movements, I'm now looking at the so-called anti-gender movements, those who doesn't want to have any more gender equality or think that it has gone too far and struggle against. Because I think also this is a social movement that actually also have a big impact, or a possible impact, on how gender and sexuality will be transformed. And they are they take a lot of space also in the digital space. So that's what I am doing now. And
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. So, well, like in relation to the project now, can you tell us what is TechnAct really? Like, what is it stands for, what it meaning, and how did you develop this project?
Maybe it's your turn to start now.
I start. She's a brain.
Yeah.
Find it all.
So I am also very curious to hear each and one of us description of what TechnAct is about. But from my perspective, TechnAct is about examining the relationship between digital technologies and social and cultural worlds. And this we can do in very different ways. But from my own perspective and background, I was never interested in technology as an object of study. I have never been this. But the idea emerged from the very beginning when this idea was, so to say, born. It was because I could see the younger generation. Actually, now I feel very old when I say this. But anyway, so it was my 10-year-old at the time who was constantly on Snapchat and had like his friends with him all the time in his phone, by the kitchen table and everywhere he went, and it was like an extension of his social world into the places where he went, in a way. And my 16-year-old, I could see the stress of her feeling when she was like nervous about a streak, also a Snapchat, was going to risking of ending. Taking so that I could see that she was also very affected by the ways in which technology worked, and I could started to think that these things were not only about the social extending into technology, but it was also something said something about how the technology extended into the social. And I think here was like the realization of what became then the first little, how to formulate this, first idea of TechnAct, that the entanglements between online and offline worlds are happening around us all the time. And I took this was then where I took the first step to conceptualize this idea of TechnAct. And later I spoke with Lisen, and I was very inspired by her knowledge in the area. And we could talk about those questions from a more technological point of view, which was very inspiring for me and became very important also. And then I spoke with Lena, and it was great fun actually to do this, because we talked about all the examples we came across during developing this idea. And I remember we were developing the idea at the time when a big debate about algorithms, the power of algorithms, were booming in society. So it was very interesting to develop this idea in the same time where everything happened, so to say. You could feel like that anyway. So. I think I stop there. I have more to say, but I think I will just leave a little bit of space to the others, and then I can come back to discuss more.
Yeah.
No, I think that's one of the wonderful things with this project, I guess, is that we can read different things into what this network will be. And I was super fascinated by the idea when Mia and Lena approached me about this. And I think for me this is interdisciplinary research, of course. It sort of crosses several it's in itself sort of cross boundary, which is suitable in every way. I have for sure always had an interest in technology, technology and how people organize themselves. So technology and organization, technology and social movements are really close to heart. And the aspect of gender and culture here just makes it even more thrilling. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and I think Mia was just brilliant developing this. Yeah.
I don't know if I have so much to add, but I totally agree also with both what Lisen said about the interdisciplinarity, that it is very important, and I really, really love this sort of interdisciplinarity when it is quite different sorts of disciplines. Yes. And for me it has been so important to finally start to be able to talk to someone with technological knowledge sort of, and how you have done that, what we are trying to do now to see the connection between social movements and technology. You have done that, you have experience of that, and that is so important for me also. And it is of course connected to what you said, Mia, because what I thought was so interesting with this project, and that I also have, it is connected also to my history. I am an ethnologist from the beginning, and as an ethnologist you learn from the very start that the materiality is so important. All the things you have, the clothes, the technology, if it is just some sort of tool or whatever, it is important to think about it as part of your world. So I have always had that in mind when I have done research. I have always thought about things and what they do. What do these things do? That was an ethnological question. So this with the digitalization is also part of that. That is a digitalization that it is impossible nearly to think about social movements today without digitalization. You can't separate them, and I can't separate myself from it either. So it is this how they are interacting with each other that I think is so important also to think about and discuss.
Yeah, definitely. I think also kind of like technology has been it kind of like turned into us as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like kind of like an extension of us in a way. So, which I find fascinating.
Yeah.
So in the web page, which will be added in our notes, and also it's in the Facebook page that you can check. It says that TechnAct, it's also technocultural assemblages. Can you maybe elaborate on what that is, what that means? But whichever, what do you want to say?
I think both Mia and I talked about it, but we didn't use the concept assemblages. That to see how the culture and technology sort of are so connected. And in your way of putting it, it is also part of your body. It comes into yourself. I think that is also part of the idea about assemblage.
Okay.
That a lot of things are intertwined, or they're not possible to separate from each other. And I love that. I really like that concept also to understand that it makes it also not so predictable to what will happen next. I think with if you think it as an assemblage, a lot of different things happen and interact with each other in an unpredictable, or not totally unpredictable, but not too,
Yes.
And speaking of actually this concept of technocultural assemblages, it actually reminds us how these these interdisciplinary connections in research are very important, and they are necessary to understand this change in digital realm and how it affects our very subjectivity, very performances, and our daily life. So I would like to ask you, as an interdisciplinary project, how do you think these two disciplines from your both sides help each other in this research so far, and how can it help in the future maybe?
I can start to say,
Yes.
I think it's not only about information systems and gender studies, but it's also about when we, five of us sits here now, we have come from very different backgrounds. So we have ethnology, political science. I have behind in my background too, literary studies, and Nadia, you have
Electronic engineering.
yeah.
and Lisen probably have something more than information.
I don't think I have.
So this is a true disciplinary.
Don't ask me.
Anyway, together we combine a very big amount of different perspectives and knowledges to exploring the world. So we have a lot of cross-disciplinary possibilities, and so this is the first. But I think anyway, still it is a good question to identify, to discuss those two particular gender studies and information systems together. And from my point of view, I think the interdisciplinary approach is it's a way I see the world, because world is not divided into as units, isolated units of history, politics, the social, or the cultural. The world is very blurred, and everything happens at the same time in a way, or not necessarily just chaotic or unregulated, because the world is also very regulated and has some repetitions occurring. And this is of course very interesting to study, and we cannot understand, but I don't think we can understand it or understand it in a deep way without crossing boundaries of just different disciplines. So yeah, I would say this, and then I think particularly when it comes to the questions of technology and emergent communities in transnational space, the two disciplines are perfect to combine, because they have the specific sensibilities, the nuances. They can see the nuances that appear.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. I agree. And I start to think that I have never worked in a project that hasn't been interdisciplinary. They have always been that. So it's and as you said, we are in ourselves, maybe not you then, interdisciplinary also. Yeah, so that is also something really interesting to think about. Yeah.
I can also comment again, because I think when working more close now to information systems, I think I learn a lot. I find it very interesting to see the discipline as a cultural practice, because we learn, we are trained to do things in a certain way. So as a gender studies scholar, I write articles in a particular way, I teach in a particular way, I refer to other researchers in a particular way.
That's right.
And I find it very interesting to be more acquainted with another discipline, because then I not only get to learn from that discipline how they, so to say, do, but I also get another view of my own
Myself,
practice and can can challenge some kind of preconceptions and norms.
And actually, I don't think I would have dared to do this project without Lisen and you, who have this experience and knowledge about these things, because they were quite far away from my sort of comfort zone before. So it is so really good. Then it started this with the passion, to learn new things and feel that I do this. It takes time, of course, because you need to read quite new things and very new things. Text. So yeah.
No, I mean, I also agree. I think this is. I really needed this. Maybe it's because I'm not interdisciplinary. Then
now you are.
Well, I am. I really enjoy. Again, really enjoy just learning new things, and I am super fascinated by the ways that you theorize and the ways that you talk about these theories, and I think it opens up, like, as a researcher, you need to, there is this element of being creative, which I think many don't think that there is, but there really is, and in order to be creative, you need to have influences from outside your own field, and I think that's what so far this project has absolutely been giving me, these new ideas and new constructs and new ways of thinking, which is super important when you do research. So yeah, I'm just really happy, and I'm even more happy that we have like 4 years to go. So
it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
It's just the
That's
beginning.
right.
And maybe from there I can also ask to connect it to the maybe certain time and space. And how do you think, and why do you think this project is important at the moment? When it comes to the different perspectives on society and the situation, why do you see the necessity of this project?
I think it is extremely important in order to also to create knowledge about what is happening now. We are in a situation where the old sort of nations are sort of changing or transforming, and they are part of this transnationalism, or that is actually also creating new forms of conditions. And the role of the digitalization is extremely important here, of course. And in order also to understand politics, what is happening with the so-called grassroots movements, and that we actually see the transformation of a lot of societies on a transnational level, that is not possible also to use the old way of governing societies today because of what we see. So I think it is really important to try to learn more about this. Yes. And also we have this terrible situation with a world with fake news and a lot of things like that is also speeding up. So that is also a reason for why this project is so important. Yeah.
You want to add something?
Yes, I can add. I really agree with what Lena says, and I think this is part of why a project like this is really important today, because of the current changes and transformations of the world and societies, and how people engage, and the possibilities for people's engagements with changes in the world. So I agree. Then I think, and I also wanted to add that I think it is a lack of knowledge about this, and this lack of knowledge is much, I think, because of disciplinary divides. So what we spoke about exactly some minutes ago. So there is really a need for more cross-disciplinary or transdisciplinary, post-disciplinary, we can have the distinctions, whatever, research on this. But I also wanted to say that I think, so the technological development at the moment is very fast. So these changes happen fast. So research also needs to be a little bit quick, which it's not always known for being. But anyway, so I think still the digitalization has, so to say, popularized technology and the interconnection between technology and social and cultural worlds, which we are speaking about in TechnAct project. But I think the digitalization or internet specifically is not any real game changer. So technology in different shapes, although I have not myself been so much focused on that in my research before, but so technology in different shapes, such as the TV, the telephone, more lo-fi technologies like glasses or the pencil has existed, and they do interact with social and cultural worlds in different ways. So I think also that this is not a new phenomenon. And I was also looking up the knowledge area cybernetics, which has existed since the mid-20th century. So it is also not a new knowledge area. So I also want to acknowledge that there has been going on research on those issues for a quite long time, and those issues has been taking place for a long time. So what we see now is more of a popularization or like intensification, perhaps, of the processes that we are interested in studying. So a little bit of a historical perspective.
That is very good.
Yeah.
I agree.
But for me, who is not so much into, has not been so much into research on technology, it is also important to see that there is no essential difference between the internet or the digital or the computer as a technology and the pencil or the glasses or the television.
Yeah.
So this is from my very disciplinary corner of humanities perspective.
Yeah. That was interesting. I need to think about that. But no, I mean, I think this couldn't be more timely than what it is. I think we are in the middle of a storm, and we have been for some years. And I think every person that I talk to and talk with are sort of concerned in different ways related to this, be it from a gender perspective or digital security, digital traces, where this, from a political perspective, of course, as well. So for me, this is extremely timely and very important, because it really, I think it enters so many spaces, so many areas in our daily life these days. So not a really good answer. More than that, I feel very strongly about it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And following that track of the importance of this project, what is TechnAct aiming for throughout the course of this 4 or 5 years that it's going to take place? What is the aim of the project?
With the goal or
the goal? The goal. What do you want to achieve? What is the purpose of it?
I actually think also what is always important for me when I am doing research, that is also sort of governing me, is of course the ongoing struggle for more, not struggle, maybe knowledge production for democracy, development of democracy, of equality, that sort of big issues in the world. And gender studies is of course part of that in many senses, to try to understand power and hierarchies. And it is the same, in order to understand it today, it is quite important also to understand the role of digitalization as part of this creation of power that is going on, that we need to bring into our field of knowledge. So that is of course something that I hope that we can contribute to a discussion about the role the digitalization have for developing democracy, or maybe threatening democracy, or something like that, to follow what is happening. And it is so threatened today, the democratic order here in Sweden, but also in so many different countries around the world. And So that is, I hope that we through this project can contribute a bit to that necessary discussion we need to have, also in order to create new knowledge to the next step about this. Maybe that sounds, but sort of.
I think that was a great answer. I was immediately thinking, you guys are supposed to defend your thesis.
Yeah, that is also true. Yeah.
In 5 years, we will do that.
Defend your PhDs. No, I think I also hope, and I think that is of course a little bit just already what Lena said, but that this project would be also like that we will have this critical voice as well. Just really thinking about, if we think about the technology at least, really think about it from all of its perspectives and all of its potential consequences and so on and so forth. So that we are not sort of creating monsters. We need to be really aware what we are doing, and so I think that's important. But then also this project is all about building networks. So we have this amazing group that of super powerful researchers that will join us, and I think that will be great.
And they are soon to be presented in our website. So if you're
So be tuned.
Yes.
Check our website, check our Facebook, check everything we have.
These are really cool people.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes, and thinking of the network and the different connections, I also hope, this is also one thing I hope for the project, to be able to develop like different kinds of collaborations depending on what people are interested in doing.
Yes.
So creating possibilities for new connections and new networks is also something that I think is what we hope for the project.
Yeah, thank you. So in the way that you were saying, Lena, about the necessity and the discussions and like putting or adding a little bit of more knowledge into this realm of technology, politics and all this, I wanted to ask all of you, what do you think about these claims that academia is being too detached from quote unquote the real world? Like, what do you think TechnAct, or how do you think it will deal with this criticism of academia?
I can start with that.
Yes.
Because I really, really don't like that question. I don't like the real world kind of way of thinking. I mean, we are all in the world, right? So I think, I find it a little bit frustrating as soon as I get that question. But maybe that's also because I'm at the Department of Applied IT, which sort of indicates that pretty much all the research we do is really close to the industry or close to the society. And I certainly envision this, and just, knowing your projects respectively, I mean, they are super hands-on. So at least from my perspective, there is no real world or non-real world. We just try to do our best. Try to do as good research as we possibly can.
Yeah, I have a little bit different perspective on the question. So it is more a reflection on the criticism of academia being detached, or like I understand it as this comment about ivory tower academia, seeing itself as like not a part of the world, but something above or at the side. And I think this relates to what in the beginning of this recording I said, that I think research traditionally, or you could criticize research for at least seeking to be seeking to be objective and neutral and not affecting its context of investigation. This is more a traditional, maybe natural science approach to research. So what is it about the methods? So the methods are about the world. So the researcher sees themselves to work with methods that are studying the world but not in the world, so to say, about the world but not in the world, which becomes, as a consequence then, looks upon itself as detached. So it is not necessarily that it is detached from the world, but is the, so to say, epistemological or methodological frameworks that produces itself as if it is detached. So this is how I understand the question. And I think this is an important discussion that needs to take place in academia and between researchers, specifically from coming from different fields of research. So particularly between maybe science, natural science, humanities and social sciences, and researchers working on different methods can be very good and important conversations about those questions. Yes, I have a second point, so I will just leave.
Lisen wants to say something.
No, I think this is great. I just wanted to make a comment, because just to give you guys some context on that, how that can happen. That happened to me. Just so I was working on this revision of a journal paper that I've been working on for way too long. Anyway, one of the reviewers asked me to what degree my work with Amnesty influenced Amnesty in terms of, creating, if they changed any of their work patterns or so on and so forth. And I immediately realized that, well, I never intended them to, but also if I would have answered that question, if I would have answered yes to that question, I would be in deep trouble. Yeah, because that would totally change my method and my approach to research. Just to give you, so I needed to state very clearly that, to my knowledge, nothing here had changed because of my work.
Yeah.
So it sort of says something about that problem, I think.
Yes, really, it does. And I think it is a very a relevant discussion, and I think it's different from different researchers' perspectives and different kinds of projects and different goals of those projects and relationships in them. So I think this is a conversation that needs to take place several times. It's not just once and for all, but we need to think about it.
But I also think that it is important today to see that the university and the research also a part of becomes deconstructed by populist or right-wing movements that also want to not want to recognize the knowledge that is produced here. So we have also some sort of force that is also not only that we should reach out in that way, because I am like you, I'm quite irritated over that sort of question. I am also part of the world, and I agree with you about this also, that the universities have always been sort of created as something special and very important and so, but we have also this force that comes now with fake news, and we in gender studies we have heard that we have just that's just your opinion, it's not knowledge, it's not that sort of thing. So I think it is important also to recognize that situation today, that maybe we actually will be very sort of deconstructed as a knowledge production, center for knowledge production in that way. Yeah.
On that, I just wanted to just put. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mia.
I have also a remark to this comment from Lena, and what also, because I had those three reflections to the question.
Okay, and we interrupted you.
But it is fine, but it's really fine. It's really fine, and this is of course fine. But so because it is interesting, because it's not an easy question. I think it's a complex question, and I think, as you also said, Lena, we can agree with the question being problematic in itself, but then it also contains something that is important to critique, and then we have this deconstructive moment now where we might want to nostalgically rebuild the position of academic knowledge production, but not necessarily maybe the hierarchies, or if that is essential for academic knowledge production.
Yeah.
Anyway, not go into that question. What I was thinking about for some time now is that I think, and this is just very like hypothetical and reflexive, I was thinking that academic or scientific knowledge production has like another kind of time than other like performances or practices. Like scientific knowledge production has another time than politics, for example. So
Time, do you mean temporality?
yes,
Okay, the way
temporality.
it
Takes more time to build
Slower?
research.
It is slower.
Okay.
So example is that politics, and it is slower in reacting too. So politics reacts on something that is very here and now. It's current. It's something that happened yesterday or last week. But scientific knowledge production is like can pick up something from like 100 and 200 and more, of course, years ago, and it still contains some kind of. It has some not necessarily eternity over it, but it doesn't loses its relevance just because it is. Time has passed. It's rather opposite. So it has a completely different relationship to temporality than politics or other kinds of practices, and that is important perhaps in relation to the discussions today too about fake news and
Exactly.
and also the ambitions to create think tanks in society and like the journalism who is so to say replacing very much researchers in news media, because researchers are more and more seldom now appearing in news media. So that is journalists who do or think tanks that takes the place. But I think we also have an important reflection to do about temporality of academic knowledge production, which is more consistent over time than any other practices.
That is a super relevant comment. Well, I guess for every field, but I mean within the information systems field, where we typically study technology, and obviously technology development is really quick. Like one of the things that we do struggle with is not to get stuck on new technology development, but to really think how the knowledge that we produce will be, relevant 50, 100 years from now on, because otherwise, I mean, we can just create new studies every second day because there is a new app.
Yes.
Really stay focused in that sense and not get just seduced by all of these new solutions.
I agree. Actually, on that, I was thinking the other day how, like, reading these papers on technological stuff, sometimes you read some things and you'll think, oh, this is so dated. Like, oh God, like this is so dated that this is not even happening right now and has been just past 10 years. And I wonder also in terms of, like in the technological part, maybe Lisen and me, since we're like doing it from this side of the disciplines, how dated or not our research will be in 10 years or 20 or maybe,
5
or 5.
Yeah, the
definitely.
project will end.
It's something that sometimes I think, and I'm like, is my research going to be dated like that? Because sometimes you get things that you read them and no matter how long or the past, it's like, oh, this is still relevant, right? Even I don't know, like narrative stuff or even literature, like 1984, it's still so relevant, like in the 40s when it was written, right? But in terms of technology, since it changes so fast, I wonder sometimes if my research is going to be dated or not, when it's going to be read in 5 years, maybe. So that's, I know it's a complicated one, but I wonder sometimes.
But it is connected to what you just said with this, that you shouldn't just new research because it comes a new app or something like that. To have the focus on something else on another level, I think. to try to also see what what is actually contributing to the big knowledge or whatever, and what is just knowledge about this app or about this game, or because I really think that you could also say something beyond the game, not only and that makes it not so risky to be dated, I think, in a couple of years, because you are actually talking to something that is bigger and take slower, so to speak, as well, and that we always need to build on and continue to contribute to. That was
Thank you.
Something
Do
very
you want
unclear, but
to add anything else about that?
So I've been studying institutions, and the university is certainly an institution.
Yes.
So, and the good and bad thing with institutions is that they don't change that easily. So hopefully, it will at least remain in some form, and maybe less as an ivory tower, but still exist and be important as an pillar, an institutional pillar of our society.
Hopefully.
Yes. And maybe connected to that discussion on the university as an institution, which can be seen as an ivory tower of the research, or can be also seen as a place where activism can be involved. So in gender studies, especially lately, this discussion on activism and academia has been taking place in many ways, and for example on anti-racism discussions. And interestingly, TechnAct, with its very fancy name, has ACT word in it. And from here maybe I can ask, so what sorts of action would this project take, thinking of these connections or disconnections of activism and academia in Sweden and in the global world?
Whomever wants to jump in.
I can start, but so basic for me, first thing that I would like TechnAct, or what I think of the action in TechnAct, is that I think of this network and research project and research cluster as a place from where we can make events together, we can invite guests, we can go to places, we can invite ourselves to others, and we can create connections and build bridges, what we spoke about before with the network, for example. So I think just also within the place of TechnAct itself, we can act a lot. It's not just as a researcher you use your mind, or like the brain.
Are you sure?
We can stop using our
we also act a lot. But then I think when it comes to participating in debates in society, I think that is also an important possibility for the project.
And the actor is also, you could say that is connected to that we are actually also following activists or other who do a lot of actions. So that is also part of the project in that sense. But following the actions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and also in this podcast, we are inviting academics, but also in the future episodes we aim to have activists where they can have their also voices in this, let's say, claimed transnational space. So yes, that's also one of the aims in this podcast.
And also knowledge production in itself is it's also sort of act, or it's performative, it's doing something. So it's so you could maybe say that all research projects are in one way or another doing an act, or in that way doing something with the society or whatever it is part of.
I don't have anything to add. I think, but maybe it's also because I guess these discussions have been maybe more salient here than what they have been at my department. I mean, one other way to think about action is, of course, if we do research, we're expected to present, and we present our research, we talk about it, we, so that's very much part of acting also.
different types of action in that case.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
following action, doing,
Mm.
activists in that sense, acting in the world. Yeah, definitely. So we are afraid that we have to wrap up the session for now. But thank you very, very, very much for joining us today and for explaining us all about TechnAct and what is the project about and the aims and everything. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you liked it. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook to learn about our activities, other updates, and give us feedback.
TechnAct was brought to you by the University of Gothenburg and the research cluster TechnAct. See you next time.